Staff are leaving your organization in droves because there is no development or leadership training, and many businesses that are struggling to hire are finding it even more difficult to maintain existing staff. Hello, and I'm Avon, Business Automation Specialist at Relevate, and you are listening to the Business Octopus podcast, where we talk about all things sales, marketing, and technology. Today, I have the pleasure of being joined by Oakland McCullough, who is a retired US Army Lieutenant Colonel from Daytona Beach, Florida, here to talk about servant leadership. Welcome. How are you going?
I'm doing well. How are you, Avon?
Fantastic. How's the weather there? I know we've had a time zone change, but
Yeah, I think it was 75 here today. I know that's
Fahrenheit. Sorry, I'm used to Celsius.
yeah, but it was a beautiful sunny day. Couldn't beat it.
It is probably the right time of year where we match up, whereas normally we're complete opposites. So we're coming out of summer and you're going into summer. So
that's right. That's right. Yeah, I lived there in Canberra for 2 years, so I had to get used to Christmas in the summertime.
Yes, that and a million roundabouts, and it actually gets quite cold there up in the mountains, but certainly no snow. But yeah, thank you for coming along today. And the topic of staff and retention is a difficult one. You know, a lot of times in Australia, we've got a massive issue where in the last 20 years, we've had this problem that's slowly been growing. It's a generational thing where we've got a growth in the number of population, but a stagnation in the working age population. So that means a lot of youth and aged, and not a lot of people in the middle to actually service both. So in this critical time, probably more so important for Australians than the US with the population. But in any case, staff are leaving organizations because there's no leadership or development training. Now, you do a lot of work with leadership and development. Can you share some of your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's absolutely what's happening. I think the Great Resignation, even here in the States, is because people aren't being taken care of. You know, if I come join your organization and I have aspirations to be a leader sometime, and you don't show me a pathway to get there, a training program or some way for me to get to be a leader, then I'm going somewhere that does. And you're losing some of your best people because you didn't take the time and effort, and it isn't a whole lot of time, it isn't a whole lot of effort to put one together to show them that there is a pathway for them to become a leader.
So we come from different ends of the spectrum, I guess, in that you've been through the officer ranks and I've been through the other ranks or the junior ranks. So I was a corporal, got up to corporal, and was 7 years in the Army. Certainly not the same career that you've had. I've done a lot of stuff outside of the military. But I remember that when I was posted to a tank regiment, the RSM, or the Regimental Sergeant Major, like the highest rank you can get on the other ranks that's not officer, would take all of the, Lance Corporal, which is the first rank of power and above, aside once a month. And they'd just spend like 3-4 hours just going through leadership stuff, like constantly. And I know that had a good impact on the way that everything was run. And I think from my perspective, it's more of an investment rather than a cost or a time sap. What do you think?
I agree. Here's the thing, even people who aren't in a leadership position and who might not even think they want to be one at some point, it does you no damage to give them leadership training. It just makes them better. And even if they never become a leader, they're still a better worker and a better person. Let's take it even a step further. And the better they are, the better your organization is going to be. So it's to your advantage to give leadership training to everybody in your organization. And the other piece of that, it's really, and you kind of hit it right on the head. Your RSM, your Regimental Sergeant Major, got to know you and figured out what it was you wanted. I don't think a lot of leaders today aren't taking the time to get to know the people that work for them, the people that they have the privilege to lead. And it is a privilege to be the leader. And they don't know them. And they're not asking them, so what's your goal here? What do you want out of this job, out of this company, out of your life? Where do you see yourself being in 10 years? And if you don't know that, then how do you know how to take care of that person and help them to meet their goals? And that might mean that in 5 years, they're going to leave your company, but that's okay. As long as they're doing it to better themselves, then pat yourself on the back. You did a good job.
I think, I always think about how do I make our business a resume-worthy business. Like there's marketing in the fact that someone works somewhere, even if they leave, like you said, in 5 years' time, that they go, oh, I work there. It's like people that work at Deloitte or PwC or something like that, they're usually think of themselves as rock stars as soon as they've got that name on their resume somewhere. And I know that like back, even private soldiers in the Australian Army anyway, get given opportunities to lead. So it's like the whole patrol is, the corporal got knocked out and someone needs to step up. And that from day one, I think that's an amazing thing, not just, having those people who are supposed to be in management positions.
Yeah, I think that's something that the Army does very well, and I think probably most of the armies in the world do that well. Because let's face it, in that business, that leader could be gone tomorrow in 5 minutes. So you got to have people that are ready to step up. But again, old people like me are going to go away at some point. There's got to be somebody that's going to replace us, and that's really part of your legacy. To me, that is what your leadership legacy is. And legacy seems to matter to me. That's what I titled my book, Your Leadership Legacy. So legacy means something to me. And to me, legacy has two parts. A very small part of your legacy is what you actually accomplish. Now, what you accomplish, what you do does matter. Results in the real world do matter. Maybe not in fantasy land where everybody gets a trophy and everybody's a winner, but in the real world, results do matter. So that's part of your legacy. But the majority of your legacy is that next generation of leaders that you're helping to produce that's going to take your place and help run that company, that organization, the country, however high up they go, that they're going to be able to do that. That's your legacy.
I did a podcast with a guy from the Australian Shark Tank. Basically, he's ex-Army as well, and he had a comment which was, so his name's Steve Baxter. He's got a comment which is, you have to buy your right to complain. So, when people are complaining about things, what have you done about it? What have you put in place? What have you tried to find out and to solve that? And a lot of times you get people complain, oh, I have to do it all. But I would say buying your right to complain about being busy is, have you done anything to get other people to have the leadership skills to be able to take that pressure off you, particularly managers and entrepreneurs and people who are at the top of their organizations. They haven't trained other people to take things off them. And
absolutely.
Then they're complaining.
When I go to an organization or a company, I've gone to several companies, and when I talk to the senior leaders, they're just telling me how busy they are. And I said, that's your fault.
Yeah.
3 words. And unfortunately, in today's world, these 3 words are used interchangeably, and they are not. They are completely different words: accountability, authority, and responsibility. So the way I explain it is, you hold everybody accountable for their actions, for their performance, for what they do, what they don't do. Everybody, I don't care who they are, is held accountable. Authority is something that you have as a leader that you can give away to somebody so that they can accomplish something you've asked them to do. So they have the power, if you want to use that word, to use resources to get something done. Responsibility is yours as the leader, period. End of story. You cannot delegate responsibility. Your name is the name on the blame line every single time. Now, here's the problem, is that we got so many leaders today, senior leaders, who are micromanaging and afraid to give up that authority because they're afraid something's going to go wrong. And that's called life. Things are going to go wrong. But they're afraid to do that. So now they are so concentrated on the day-to-day running of their organization that they're not doing their job, which is looking out into the future, having a vision and figuring out a plan on how to get there, and checking on all the things that are changing that's going to change that plan. They don't have time to do their job. If you train people to do their jobs and do it well, then you as the leader have time to do what only you, the leader, can do.
I've said this in a few podcasts, and as soon as I say it, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Central command versus mission command. And for those listening, central command is where it's like there was a concept of cut the head off the snake. If you get the leader, you can kill the entire beast. Whereas mission command is like Medusa, lots of heads, lots of, yes, there's a whole, body of, there is a commander, there is a chief, but you've got these different units or elements operating somewhat independently with an overarching centralized goal or mission. They can deal with localized problems. They can get around roadblocks. They are going to have localized problems, but it's going to be a lot easier than if you, the single person, the single point of failure has to do everything. It's like the business that goes bust because the business owner broke a leg or got injured or was sick for a period of time or for whatever reason. That's not scalable, and that's problematic for sure.
Well, what I tell senior leaders is this, you've got to, everybody in your organization has to understand what the vision and the plan is for the entire organization. And then they have to understand what their part of that plan is. Because if they don't understand what their part is, how are they going to help get you there? Then, I had a boss who retired a 3-star general, a great mentor of mine. And one day he told me, he said, Oak, leadership is on a scale. He said, on this scale is the authoritarian micromanaging, do it exactly as I tell you how to do it. We've all worked for that person. Not fun. Nobody wants to work for that. And you stifle all creativity. On this end of the scale, you have Attila the Hun and chaos. Controlled chaos, but chaos. He said, Oak, you want to be as far on that scale toward chaos as you feel comfortable. He said, this is why. Because that's where creativity happens. You train somebody to the standard so they can do what you're asking them to do. You give them the overall picture of what you want, your intent. What do you want it to look like at the end? You give them the resources that they need to do it, time, money, people, equipment, whatever. You give them the authority to make it happen, and then you get out of their way and let them do it. And he said, will they do it exactly the way you would have done it? Absolutely not. But who cares? And the analogy that I always add to that is 7 + 2 is 9, but so is 6 + 3 and 5 + 4 and 8 + 1. How do you care? Why do you care how we get to 9? We just got to get to 9. Let them figure that piece out, and they'll surprise you.
I really love that. I don't think I've heard it put quite that way, but I definitely know walking into an organization or even into my organization, and then people come up and say, hey, we had this problem, we solved it that way. And it's like, okay, well, that's just an FYI. Thank you. See ya. And I didn't even know that was an issue coming up. Well, like there's customers I've never met. There's, for a little while, there was an employee that we hadn't met but for like a couple of weeks. So I hadn't gotten around to that. And in a larger organization, that's going to happen. It's a lot easier in the military now, where you can get 500 people on a parade ground on a couple of orders. But in my organization, everyone's remotely distributed. You've got to do Zoom meetings and catch ups and things like that. So it can be a little challenging. But
well, again, the leader can't know everything. And a leader that tries to know everything that's going on is, again, you're stifling all creativity. Because here's the problem. If you're that type of leader and you got to have your hand in everything, then people are just going to sit back and wait for you to tell them what to do. Why would I make any decisions? Why would I put my neck on the line? I just got to wait for the boss to come tell me what to do. If you're like we're talking about, if I see a problem, I'm going to fix it. Because that's what I'm there for. And 9 times out of 10, the person that's on the ground dealing with the problem knows how to fix it better than the boss does. Because that's what they do. So let them do it.
I think in order to get that leverage, like, yes, you can be the leader, but then you almost at a certain point have to be a leader of leaders. And in order to continue that succession plan, as you was mentioning earlier, a lot of times we have a problem where someone promotes the technical person, the developer, the salesperson, but then they kind of expect them to lead without giving them any training. So what's some of the issues that can arise of that?
Yeah, I mean, that happens all the time. We promote people based on their performance at the job they're doing now, not on their potential for what you're putting them into. And then and they may have that potential. That your best salesman may have the potential to be a leader, but just because they're a good salesman doesn't mean they're going to walk right into being a good leader. You have to give them some kind of training. Again, goes back to professional training and development. Because that's how you develop those things. And there's a couple of ways to do that. And again, it's not hard. it takes time,
Mm.
and you got to carve some time out of the schedule to make that happen. But, I say one is a professional reading program. Nothing, if you want to be a leader, start reading everything you can about leadership, whether it's a book, an article, a blog, a bulletin, doesn't matter. Read it. Now, there's a lot of crap out there about leadership too. I got that.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. You can learn just as much from something that's bad as you can from something that's good. You just got to make that decision of what's the good ones and what's the bad ones. But I always tell people autobiographies is the thing that you should want to read about. Read autobiographies of great leaders, because then not only do you learn what they did, but you figure out why they did it, the thought process that was going through their mind. So have a reading program, then have a scenario-based hands-on type thing where you get some leaders together and you put them in a situation, and based on whatever your business is, there's always things that go wrong, and say, okay, you're the leader today and this happened. How are we going to fix that? And let them walk through how to do that. Then the last piece of that is every time you do something, every time leaders do something or your organization does a big event, I'm a huge believer in reflection. That's how you learn. You don't learn from experience. You learn from the reflection of that experience. Because if you don't take any lessons out of that, the experience means nothing. You got to take the lessons. What happened and how do we get better at it? Even if you were successful, you can still figure out how to get better at it. So every time there's a big event, you call everybody together and say, okay, this was what we were supposed to do. This is what we did. How do we get better? And let them give you some ideas. And then I also believe that leaders have to have a personal reflection program where every day you look at what you did that day and figure out how to get better at it tomorrow. Because that's your goal. You owe it to the people that you are leading to be the best leader you can be. And the only way you're going to do that is continuously improve.
I think, you're probably familiar with this framework of the AAR, or the after action review. Yeah. So we got like a fix, sustain, improve. So you just go through and literally.
And I just took that and basically took it to the business world, because they don't know what AAR stands for. No. But they can understand, you got a big event, let's reflect on it. Let's see what we did.
Yeah.
What we were supposed to do, what we did, what caused us to do it wrong.
Yeah.
Or what can we do to make it better? And then let's learn from that experience. That's the only way you're going to get better.
And yeah, like particularly as you start to scale, like having gone from sole operator to now like 7 figures, 20 staff, and definitely by the time I'm going further and further and back from, I guess, the coalface of dealing with all of the customers and all that sort of stuff, is that now having to rely on it, I'm more focused on trying to rely on other people rather than jumping in and solving every problem, and having that feedback loop, which we have, what happened here. And it's, if you don't do that and you just go, oh, well, that was a problem, we'll work harder. We'll work harder only works 1% of the time.
That's right.
But at a certain point, if you don't have the systems and the processes and the training and all of those things, you'll never get beyond, like 5 or 10 people in an organization, because you can't work harder all the time. You can't be in every conversation. Yeah.
Well, and again, the whole reason you do the reflection is so that you learn some lessons that will make next time we do that, or something similar to that, we know some things that didn't work and we know some things that might work. And so then next time that comes up, we won't do the things we know don't work, but we'll try something that might work. And if it doesn't, then we'll reflect on it and we'll change it. We'll add that to the don't do list. And the next time we'll try something else. I was lucky enough as a senior first lieutenant to hear General Hal Moore talk. And he was probably one of the greatest combat generals our Army ever produced. And they made that movie, We Were Soldiers Once and Young. That was about Hal Moore and his unit in Vietnam. And Mel Gibson played it. Great movie, by the way. And one of the things I remember hearing when I was sitting there listening to him, he said, look, life is not like baseball. And I guess cricket for you over there in Australia. It's not 3 strikes and you're out. If you try something and it doesn't work, you try something else. And if that doesn't work, you try something else. And you keep trying until you figure out what works. Because as a leader, you don't have the option of saying, well, that didn't work. Okay. You have to figure out how to make it work.
Yeah, so like that fail fast kind of concept, do like little experiments along the way.
Yeah.
And I think in terms of, bringing it together and having those conversations, there's two types of knowledge. You got tacit and explicit. So explicit, you can write it down. The other one, you can't write it down. You have to live it. So you have to stuff up to know not to stuff up, that crawl, walk, runs. And those things, I think, while people go, just read the manual, doesn't always cut it. So those physical interactions, those workshops, those like AARs, all of those reviews help to extract the knowledge that you can't just write down. You have to feel it and go.
I absolutely, I agree. One of the things I tell people when I go give my leadership talk, I said, look, we can bring 1,000 leadership experts. I hate that word expert. We can bring 1,000 people in here and talk and give you everything you ever need to know about leadership, all the knowledge there is. But until you go out there and actually lead, it means nothing. It's just knowledge. Knowledge means nothing without some experience. If you can't put the knowledge into practice, what good is it?
Someone said, so knowledge, and there's so much knowledge out there, in YouTube videos, in podcasts like this one, in books, as we mentioned earlier, but knowledge and experience is wisdom. So there you go. Powers combined, you can do pretty much anything. So organizations that have all of these issues, like they've hired the person, they've not necessarily trained them. We know that it doesn't work effectively, but what are some strategies that people can do to start making a shift to building these leadership teams?
Yeah, so I think the first thing you have to do is it's incumbent on the leader to start to get to know the people in their organization. And that's contagious. A lot of organizations that aren't working very well, nobody in that organization knows each other. They know the names because they send emails, they send text messages, they make phone calls. But if Avon and I walk past each other in the hall, we don't even know who each other are. That's not a team. I'm sorry. That's people coming to work for their 8 hours, drawing their paycheck and going home. They don't have that community. And a famous American football coach said one time, a team is not a group of people who play together. A team is a group of people who trust each other. And you don't trust people you don't know. At least I hope you don't. So the only way to get that trust in that organization is to get people to know each other. And it starts with the leader. I tell every single leader that I talk to, easy ways to start this ball rolling. Number one, go out every day, find one person in your organization, just one, and find out one new thing about that person. Not about work, their personal life. What's their spouse's name, their kids' name? What sports do their kids play? What's their hobbies? What do they like, what they don't like? That starts building some of that trust. And it also gives you some insight into that person. So when you're handing out projects, you know which ones that person may be good at and which one they may not be good at. So that gives you that advantage there too. Then start them talking to each other by holding a monthly or quarterly luncheon, and not talk about business, just let them start getting to know each other, introduce themselves. And I had a boss who retired, a 3-star general, and he said, Oak, never, ever, ever turn down a chance to go get your own cup of coffee. He said, every time you go get your own cup of coffee, 2 things happen. He said, number one, you show everybody in the organization that you're no better than they are. You have to go get your own cup of coffee just like they do. He said, and number 2, if you're lucky, you got 2 or 3 different ways to get to the coffee pot and back, and you stop and talk to people along the way. And if people see you start doing that, then they will start doing that. And the other piece that I had an acquaintance here in Daytona who had a company that had about 240 people in it, and he had his own building. And he was telling me his people didn't know each other. And I said, well, here's an easy fix for that. Make it every Friday a no text, no phone call, no email day inside the building. Now, if you got to talk to somebody outside the building, got it. But if you got to talk to somebody inside the building, you can't text them, you can't email them, and you can't phone them. You got to get out of your seat and go find them and talk to them.
Mm.
He said that made a huge difference.
Mm. And not even like ultra disruptive, other than, you know, the 2 minutes it takes to walk down the hall to get to that one.
Right.
I mean, in our organization, we're quite distributed. So we've got people in, you know, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne, New Zealand.
Sure. So what I would say for yours is that they got to do a Zoom with their cameras on.
We do that. We do every day. We have 15 minutes. We call it coffee chat, and we talk about, you know, what you do on the weekend, and you know what, you know, we tell a dad joke at the end as well. And then constantly we'll celebrate wins or birthdays or funny moments.
So you're doing exactly that. You're doing all the right things.
Yeah, we have like a lot of gifts and all that sort of stuff. And I had thought of, there's another program which is like a peer-to-peer rewards program. And I've seen this rolled out in some organizations where you basically distribute these points, and it can be done with like tokens or whatever. But then you say, if someone's done something good for you, maybe they lent you their stapler, or they helped you with some project, or they did something they didn't need to do, or they were just super awesome to work with, then you can award them points. And because you're not the only one giving these rewards out as like from the top, it's a peer-to-peer recognition program or a bonus program, which then can result in pay or gift certificates or, you know, lunch out or something like that. So
that's an awesome program. I'll have to add that one to my list. That's awesome.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, that's just culture building. When I was in America, I went to Zappos shoes. So they were, I guess, a little bit revolutionary because of their culture was everybody was in the same room, including the owners and directors. Everybody had those booths? Cubicles, with really low walls. And everybody, all the outside meeting rooms were for meeting rooms. They weren't like offices. And so by being in the trenches with everybody, no one was above anybody else, to the point where they've taken it more to like a holacracy, where there's no management. Interesting concepts they're trying, but nonetheless, they're like 1 in every 10 packages in the US postal system was a Zappos bag, because they sell shoes. So it's an amazing thing what you can build. And when we were there, we did the tour, and everyone gets their own desk. There's no like hot desking. Everyone's customized it, personalized it. But, you know, the leadership would really shone through. It was actually quite good. So
yeah, I mean, it's amazing what you can accomplish when you build a team that people actually, you know, that trust each other. And I talk about 360-degree trust. You know, a lot of people understand that trust is the people you lead have to trust you. That's given. And that's the number one. I mean, if that doesn't exist, it doesn't matter. Nothing else you do matters, because the people you lead have to trust you. But then the leader has to trust the person that they're leading as well. And then everybody on the team has to trust each other that they're going to do what they're supposed to do and accomplish things they're supposed to accomplish. And then you could take it in the business world, you can take it one step further, and you can say that the outside organizations and people that are doing business with your business have to trust you, and you have to trust them. So it really is that 360-degree trust. And if any part of that is broken, then you're not as effective or efficient as you can be.
100%. Well, be all you can be. Thank you so much for coming along today. It's been a fantastic chat, and I think anyone listening has got tons and tons of value. You can find out more about Oak. I'm going to leave a link to his book and details in the episode comments. And of course, you can connect with him on LinkedIn. If you're listening to the podcast and you have any questions, or you'd like to be on the show, you can reach out to us at relevate.com.au. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to join us in the Relevate community, and you take care.